Hello, I'm Irina Baker. Welcome to the podcast I Am a Woman of Power, inspiring stories and practical tips on overcoming challenges by going within and connecting with your divine power. In addition, every interview has a complimentary companion podcast practice at radiantmastery.com/practice. And I'm here with a wonderful woman, and this is Lindsay McKinnon. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Irina. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your platform so that I can reach out to any of your listeners as well.
Welcome, and let's go right into it.
Okay.
First of all, I would like to introduce Lindsay. She's a midwife of souls, a way shower, and a vessel for holistic healing. Through inspired action, she guides individuals and communities to connect, heal, and amplify their lives. And of course, Lindsay, you couldn't say this and you couldn't have done that if you haven't been on that path yourself and you haven't experienced the healing and the soul expansion and even connecting with your soul yourself. So let's talk about it.
Okay.
What was
favorite topic?
Of course, right? That's why we're here, right? Chatting about it. So what was the challenging situation that you had to go through in order to even be on the other side where you are now?
So as everyone is taking a deep breath in, so the challenging situation was one night years ago, our house caught on fire. And that night we lost everything that ever gave us meaning to live. We lost all of our possessions. We lost all of our family heirlooms being passed down, and we also lost our 2 children. And it took me to the depths of my soul as I knew it then, for sure.
I am tearing again. I've heard the story and I'm already
yeah, it's a hard one.
Heavy. It is heavy.
Yeah, deep breath.
Right. Few questions before we go deeper into the meaning of all of this, but the details. So how long ago was it? What was the year?
It was in 2016, March of 2016.
March. Where were you? Where did you live at that time? Virginia?
Yep, in the mountains of Virginia.
And why was the fire? Is it just started, or what was the cause of the fire?
You know, no one knows to this day. The fire marshals, I'm very active in fire safety and working with our fire departments locally. And I've spoken at a lot of their events since then. But the fire marshals, there was not enough evidence left behind to even establish how it started. So nobody knows.
And how many people were in the house?
We were hosting another family who came in town to hang out with us for the weekend. We're all going to go rock climbing the next day. And so there were 8 of us.
And how many people died?
Just my 2 boys.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, everybody else was able to get out. My 2 boys, and we lost a cat too. Our other dog, our other cat was able to get out. Their dog was able to get out.
So what happened to them? Why when they were not able to get out, the boys?
I mean, that's a question that we'll be wondering for the rest of our lives, and it certainly wasn't for a lack of trying.
Of course.
All of us adults were trying with every effort to get to the boys, but if you've ever been in a house fire, it happens very quickly. You have less than 3 minutes to get out. And and also, sorry, my
I
mind.
know. Myself, we will go past by very
Yeah.
fast. So
Well,
maybe
it's
that's.
just, there's a lot of black smoke and soot, and you can't see, and you're dizzy, and you're very disoriented in your own home. Like you get very confused about where you are or what floor or what room you're in because of all the sounds, all the smells, and it's very toxic, and you're breathing it in. And, you know, they say for fire safety, they say get out and stay out. And we didn't do that. We were trying to go back in. And I think going in and out and in and out just increased the intensity of the fire too. But we didn't know. So there's a lot that we didn't know.
The reason I ask that is actually the spiritual question. Maybe it won't sound as spiritual, but I still will ask it from the spiritual position. Did you feel guilty that you lost the boys? You're alive and they're not.
Wow, that's such a good question. And no. I don't know what it is about me, but I just don't allow myself to go there. Because the fact is that we did lose the boys. And that's just fact. How I feel about it, I'm devastated. But guilty is just not a word that's in my vocabulary, really, because I know that we tried everything that we possibly could.
Right.
And I also experienced that fire. Fire is an element of transformation. And I was very connected spiritually to the boys, and still am. And the way I experienced that fire, I say I'm a midwife of souls because I could feel their souls transitioning. So as soon as I realized what was actually happening, I started parenting them to let go and to move in the direction that they needed to go. And wow.
And that's why we're having this interview, because people do need to go, that this is the way to handle. It's a very different way from what people are accustomed to, right? Tradition that you cry, you grieve like crazy right now, and you will never forgive yourself and anybody else. Yes, it's painful, it's tragic, it's dramatic, but spiritual, absolutely. Even we're traumatized hearing it, right? Imagine you being there, being the mother. And there is a spiritual way. The spiritual way is a very, very different way, very different direction. And that's what you've chosen. And that's what you're teaching others. So hands down to you for that.
Yes.
Next question. Were you already spiritually aware before, or this situation made you wake up?
Both. Yeah.
What do you mean by both?
So I was definitely spiritually aware beforehand. I grew up going to, ever since I was a little kid, I went to church because my grandfather was a bishop in the Moravian church. But I didn't have my own personal connection to religion or spirituality until I was in high school. And then once I tasted that collective fellowship, I couldn't get enough of it. So I've always been a seeker, and I've always reached to learn new things, new practices, new rituals, new ceremonies. So yes, I've always been a spiritual person, and I've had teachers and mentors across the board for many, many years.
So that's why it was maybe not easier, but still, on the other side, spiritually, it's always easier because you have awareness, you understand life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So traditional ways, I always ask during the interview, did you start with any traditional ways? You already said you were spiritually aware, and that was your first response to start parenting your boys with transition, letting go, whatever you
Yeah.
were saying, right? And I'm sure I know they were there
Yeah.
and they didn't suffer. I know that for a fact because
Yep.
we always, you know that, right? We exit the body before something traumatic happens. So the soul, they're not suffering really. They're just watching it. So it's, for us, it's comforting to know, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And still, did you have any traditional ways to deal with your grief? Because grief is still there, even though you know they're alive, they're not really dead, but they passed from your life. They're not
Yeah.
here with you.
Oh, yeah. I, for many months, was completely numb. And as far as traditional ways that are not particularly good for you, I drank a lot of wine and I really numbed myself in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't, I haven't used any kind of pharmaceutical medications,
Mm-hmm.
although I've suffered from depression and
Mm-hmm.
PTSD.
After
And
the event?
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
now I call it PTSD instead because it's a growth process, and I don't identify myself with any of those labels, right?
Right. Good. Mm-hmm.
So, but I did not. I've had all kinds of therapists and holistic healers and body workers and energy workers.
Wait. Before that, before holistic
Yeah,
healers.
yeah,
So the traditional ways. So you were drinking, you did not take medication, but you had a depression. And you said you went to a talk therapist, right?
yes, and I still do. I
Mm-hmm.
still do. Yeah, and I love her.
And you named in with me before the interview, you named her as a traditional way, right?
Yeah.
Why? Just no
Well, I
behind
think
it, nothing behind it, just interesting.
yeah, I think in our culture we understand like therapy as in a licensed counselor who's been trained and educated and has a master's or PhD in a particular approach to help me through trauma using EMDR, which was beautifully helpful,
Mhm.
um, and talk therapy, you know.
But
But I also know, or I'm going to say,
okay,
and I, there's more. There's a lot more.
right.
Do you want me to start getting into that piece?
Sure.
Okay.
What I want to distinguish because what I've learned, or we all know, when a tragedy or any event or challenge happens with us, especially tragedy, but other things as well, we tend to rush into outside world and seek help and protection and everything else, right? Because we
Yes.
need support. We all need support. And so
Yes.
we try to turn to, I call it traditional methods, the
Mm-hmm.
outside world. For example, if you are married and you don't like your husband, you get divorced. If you uh, if you don't like your job, you quit the job and find another job. If you don't like where you live, you move the city, you leave the city behind and go to another state, and like that. So these are the outer methods that we try to cope with the challenge, basically running away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But so they usually don't work, even though people still do that. They still do
Yeah.
it, right? We still get divorced, we still get uh, quit the jobs and so forth. And then there is another approach.
Mm-hmm.
And another approach to me is the one that really deals with the problem, really heals it on a very deep level. So do you
Mm-hmm.
agree with that?
Yeah. And I started reaching out to other kinds of holistic practices because, well, first of all, I'm a holistic practitioner myself. So I've been a massage and body worker and a childbirth doula for well over 20 years. So that's my language, is to always go to the body and to trust I trust my body more than my brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
We can get really lost up here and have a completely different experience in our body. And as a body worker, I know that we manifest these things in our bodies that are spiritually originated, right? So in order to heal, I had to work the backdoor approach and work with the body to go deeper and deeper and deeper in my internal spaces and really work my shadow work, so that I could move internally and then experience my life externally and walk in the world in a whole different way.
You said it beautifully.
Mm.
And you know the results. You did get tremendous results from it.
Oh, yeah.
Because if we look back, did drinking give you any results? Well,
Oh
it
my
did for a moment, right? Numbing you, how perfect it is, right?
Yeah, it just, yeah, no.
Right. No, exactly. If you, and I don't mean to offend anybody
Yeah,
whatsoever, but if you just talk to a therapist and talked and talked and talked, what would you be where you are right now without any body work, without any shadow work, without any of
no,
that?
because as you talk and talk and talk, you're also reaffirming the story over and over and over again. And that's sealing the story into your body, right?
Right.
So that's why I loved working with EMDR, is because it helped create new pathways in my brain. And so I started doing other holistic practices. I started working with animals. I started working with horses. I started working with hot and cold therapy. So I would go to spas and submerge myself into extremely cold waters, because in that moment, I could feel physical sensation that wasn't the numb that I was feeling in depression, right? I could
Wow.
feel physical sensation that I had to be completely present with. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to teach myself, when you're submerged in ice cold water, to learn how to breathe. When everything in my body wanted to contract and shut down, I taught myself how to open up. Okay.
Is
And
it
then,
a practice? Is it a supervised practice by holistic practitioner, or you just decided it yourself? I've never heard of going into cold water.
it can be supervised practices, but to me, it was just intuitive. I found myself
So
at a
you
spot
just decided to do it.
and I just walked in the water. And at first, I would just dip in really fast and be like, and get out. And then I would go in slower and slower and stay longer and longer and longer each time. I also worked with massage and body work. I also worked with craniosacral work. I also worked with acupuncturists. I also went to the food that I was eating, and I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped drinking caffeine. I took away dairy, and I just started stuffing myself with nutrient-rich food. So my body started feeling better. I started working out with a personal trainer, so I started getting stronger. But then I also really leaned into my spiritual practices, and really leaned into my spiritual communities and went deep, deep, deep into ceremony. And I would spend hours in ceremony, hours in prayer and meditation, lighting candles, drawing cards, all kinds of practices across the board.
What was it your grief? Were you, when you were doing all the practices, was it specifically grief oriented, that you needed to go through your grief and finally release it in a most natural way, or it was already growth and beyond grief. So where were you while you were going through the practices? What was your purpose?
Well, I knew, I mean, yeah, it was definitely grief.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, with my clients that I work with, I define grief as the integration
Mm-hmm.
of a deep impact. Depression to me is a different thing. That's a pathological condition. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so I was learning how to integrate this thing into my living so that I could live, right?
Mm-hmm.
And relearn how to live with
Mm-hmm.
joy and with peace, because that is my sacred birthright. And I know that. And I also know how happy that makes my boys, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
To see their mom lit up,
Mm-hmm.
still to this day. So every morning I would wake up, and before putting my feet on the floor, I would ask my boys, where am I going to see you today? And so I would get out of bed looking forward to walking out the door, because somewhere, somehow, I knew that Patrick and Logan were going to be reflected in conversations or in the landscapes or in the elements or in the experiences that I had that day. And I could recognize them and see them and appreciate them and move on to the next hour or the next day, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I also practice koya dancing, and that is a very deep internal pilgrimage through movement. And with the koya practice, I also facilitated several koya retreats following the fire, and that was deeply moving as well. And while I was on a specific koya retreat in Africa, I had a huge encounter with an elephant. And that encounter with that elephant really changed the course of my experience living in this world, because that elephant was another mother who had just lost her baby 3
Oh,
weeks prior.
can you tell us
So
the story of your
this,
encounter?
yeah, of course. Oh my gosh. I love this story. It's so
Oh,
deeply meaningful.
I
So
was just watching, watched recently Holiday in the Wild. It's the experience in Africa. Have you seen that movie? It's Hallmark
no,
movie.
I'm going to write it down
Oh,
though.
you have to, because it's about elephants, and well, it's about a woman and her personal journey of transformation, awakening, and basically spiritual, a deep spiritual
Yeah.
awakening. But she does it through the African experience, and
Mm.
elephants are all around, and it's the story of elephants, how the baby elephant lost his mom, and how they were taking care of him and saved him. Yes.
Oh,
So
you
you need
guys
to
have to
tell
watch
us the
the movie.
story.
So we were invited, my husband and I were invited by a friend of ours who is also a Koya teacher, and she was leading this retreat in Zimbabwe. And so we went, and we had an incredible week and just fell in love with the people and with the landscapes and the animals there. There's just nothing like it. And they really taught me how to pull my head out of my head, and to really see that I'm not the only one grieving this loss, that it was a communal loss in epic proportions. And they really showed me how to also find laughter again. And so every day we were with the elephants, and for
So
some
you were actually with elephants. Were they in an enclosure or in the wild, or how is it with? Now I
so it
want to
was,
know.
yeah, it's called Amire Sable Lodge, and it's about 2 hours outside the capital city, Harare, and in this place called Wedza. And Amire is a huge compound, and they have like a bed and breakfast inn that's absolutely gorgeous, and it's like an oasis in the middle of Africa. And they also have a game park where they educate the locals on conservation and endangered species like the rhinos. So they have rhinos, they have zebras, they have impalas, they have elephants, they have animals of all kinds on the game park. And so we would go out into the game park with the guides every day. And it was quite beautiful. And we would walk in the morning at sunrise with the elephants as they were eating breakfast. So this one particular encounter, on the very last night that we were there, we went out camping in the game park with these elephants. And I had really just maybe about 2 days, I think everybody was very protective of us because they knew that we had lost so much. And so they didn't tell us about this story with these other elephants. So they were being very protective and we had no idea.
I am emotional again.
Right. So, but we did learn about it gradually throughout the week. And so we went camping with the elephants and they literally slept like 30 yards away from us. So I fell asleep that night under the Milky Way in a way that I've never seen it before, like so many shooting stars. And I just knew that my life would never be the same. But I also knew that I was supported beyond what I even had the capacity to wrap my brain around. Spiritually, benevolent beings, spirit guides, the stars, the landscapes, communities across the world, I knew that I could just fall back and surrender. And the next morning, as we were getting ready for breakfast, we were all pulling divination cards, and I pulled a card and it said, "Speak your truth." And I was like, I don't really know what this card means for me right now. And I made up something to tell the group, and all of a sudden there was this major commotion on the side of our campsite, and the elephants are guarded 24 hours a day by protectors that carry guns with them in case of poachers, right?
It's the same situation in the movie, and you have to watch that movie.
Yeah,
I
really
feel
do.
like I'm there right now because that's the only I can relate to in
Right.
that movie.
Okay. Oh, I just got goosebumps. Okay. Yeah, holiday in the wild.
In the wild.
Yeah. So all of a sudden the protectors, the handlers, were yelling in their native tongue. And so I looked up, and it was as though the metaphor that I used to describe it was like a toddler breaking away from its parents at the mall, like wanting to see a toy and defying what the parents are saying, right? And it was Mandevou. It was the mama elephant. And she broke from the handlers and walked straight through the middle of our campsite and right up to me. And when she did, she stopped in front of me and she reached out her trunk and she smelled my head. She smelled my face, my shoulders. She took her trunk and she scanned my entire body all the way down to my feet, all the way back. She touched my heart and she just stood there with me. Where my chin started shaking. And at this point, Mandevou's partner, Mac, walked up to my husband and was doing the same thing to him. So all of a sudden, there were 4 grieving parents, human and beast, who were just in this moment with each other that just defied language. You know, and I saw myself in her. I believe she saw herself in me, And to this day, whenever I need strength, whenever I need more compassion, whenever I need to be rooted and anchored, whenever I'm way up in my head, I go to that moment and I literally reach out for her. And I really believe that she feels me and that I feel her even across the Atlantic Ocean.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So she's my spirit animal. She's my power
Oh,
pack. Yeah.
Ooh, what a
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. It's, oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm in the process of writing a book, and it's definitely my favorite chapter.
Well, you put all details there. Make sure don't skip the details.
Yeah. Being bathed in elephant snot is quite the experience.
And she just came, she just broke away from everybody and she just walked straight up to you, right?
Yeah.
This is incredible.
Yeah.
By the way, to get practical tips and awareness shifting activities pertaining to this interview, go to radiantmastery.com/practice to access your complimentary companion podcast practice.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Of course, it will stay with you for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe beyond, right? The memory.
Right. Exactly.
Wow. Oh, that's a healing in itself. Huge healing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm sure she was getting healing too as well.
I like
Because it's
to think
always
so.
mutual. Absolutely, because it's all energetic and they feel the energy, maybe most likely more than we do. And
Yeah.
she was seeking comfort in you and helping you and seeking comfort as well.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sound healing is another form that I love to use. To go to my sound healers, and they use drums and bowls and rattles of all kinds, and that also helps neurologically to recreate different brain waves in different states of being as well. So I've really I've gone pretty deep on this path so far.
So you had
And
to. You had to.
Yeah.
But not everybody chooses to do it, so it's very brave
That's
for
so
you
true.
to. Right.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's been an absolute gift to have the time to be able to really work it. Right. So,
How long was your period when we were drinking and feeling depressed? And even though you know spiritually that there are other ways, but you needed to go through that particular period of darkness because darkness did overcome you at that moment. So how long did it last?
Well, I would say an absolute definite 6 months where I was just, you know,
Right.
incapacitated.
In the darkness.
Yeah. So,
And it's totally understandable. That's what you had to go through.
And I also have to say that I still have my moments, I still have my days. I still go there. And I have to have a lot of grace with myself and kind of give myself permission to go there, knowing that it's temporary. Right. Okay. I have to put limits and boundaries. And I also have set up with, close girlfriends and my inner circle, like when they see me going a certain direction, they know to call me out, and so I really depend on them as well. So yeah.
So after those 6 months, did you have any quote unquote awakening? Maybe it's not the spiritual awakening per se, but awakening when you say, okay, enough is enough, I can start going in a different direction. Maybe you didn't say it consciously, but with your actions or something. In other words, how did transformation happen from that deep depression and darkness into rituals and whatever you were doing?
Well, I was doing rituals while I was drinking too. So, which
okay.
I really recommend. That's a terrible way to do rituals. But anyways, and I remember while I was in that state, like wanting something more, but not feeling like I could, not feeling like I had control over it quite yet. Like there
Right,
was
right.
something I was waiting on to happen, some kind of a trigger, and I didn't know what that thing was.
That's what I'm asking about.
Yeah,
Because consciously we can say out to ourselves, oh, we have to do it, we have to get up and
right.
do it. But until you're ready inside, nothing will happen.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
think I had another encounter with a horse doing equine therapy about month 4 after the fire. And that was a definite awakening moment and light bulb experience where I was like, whoa, okay, there's something way beyond what I've known that I need to explore here. And then I think when I started taking my body seriously, when I started not drinking so much, when I started stuffing myself with nourishing foods, when I started self-care practices, when I started, we were living in a small apartment with a teeny tiny bathroom when we were relocated because we didn't have a house anymore.
Right.
And
Right.
so I would go to my friends' houses to take baths. And so I don't think it really wasn't one big thing. It was
Mm-hmm.
small actions
Mm-hmm.
that create small consistent actions that
Mm-hmm.
created momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some big things in the process too.
Right. And
So
yet you clearly stated 6 months.
yeah,
How interesting is that? Just pointing at
yeah,
it.
yeah.
How long?
Well,
six
I
months.
think 6 months was the time between our fire and Africa and the elephant
Uh-huh.
encounter.
Well, so could that be the elephant was the breakthrough? There had to be something because you
Yeah,
wouldn't say you wouldn't say exactly 6 months. You would say gradual transition. You would say different.
yeah,
It's in a different way, right?
yeah.
There had
I
to
don't
be
know.
something there.
I mean, we've got time on this earthly plane, and then we've got all kinds of timelessness on
Right.
other planes too. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now I would like to touch on power and powerlessness and all in between. So when the fire happened and the tragedy happened, how did you feel power wise? Did you feel powerless? Did you feel anything like that or not at all?
Um, well, completely powerless. I felt completely raw and exposed and devastated. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know, without my house and home, without my children, I didn't know who I was anymore all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I doubted everything. I had nothing to attach myself to.
Mm-hmm.
And because I didn't have anything attaching myself, I felt in that moment um, just like a leaf blowing in the wind, like with no purpose, no sense of meaning, or anything like that. Now I understand that detachment to actually be a superpower.
Would you say now, and I don't know if it's true or not, would you say now looking back that your ego died on some level because ego
Yeah,
lost everything abruptly? That was a
yeah.
trauma for the ego.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm also a Leo, so I have a very big ego at the same time. So that's a
So
different context.
I mean,
Um,
not one fire will not kill me. The ego is saying, right?
yeah, kind of. Yeah, and it's that sense of like, okay, rise, rise, rise. Just stand wherever you are in all the raw, uh, vulnerabilities, and even there, uh, stand in that spot and just own it And I think that's when power, or being empowered, started breathing life back into me. Knowing that I could go through that and feel the way that I was feeling and embrace it. And by embracing it, it's almost like that whole experience became a dance partner, and instead of being beaten by it, I learned to dance with it, so that it was a relational experience.
So you
Right?
surrendered. You
Yeah.
surrendered.
Oh yeah.
So that means the ego surrendered.
Yeah.
And you had to be reborn on an entirely different way, in how you perceive yourself, how you perceive life, how you perceive relationship in life, how everything, right?
Everything, yeah.
Because maybe, did you experience that what before was meaningful became absolutely obsolete and has no meaning whatsoever, or at least not important?
It all has meaning, but it just shifts,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like even now, like having a house and home, it means something to me,
Mm-hmm.
and it means something a little bit different than it used to mean.
But is there the same attachment like before?
No.
Exactly.
No.
So before
I
it was.
know,
Uh-huh.
yeah, I know now that I can be stripped of everything and still be all of who I am.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, very different.
Yeah.
So because we give meaning to the ego, the human side of us gives
Right.
important, tremendous meaning to things around us in the outside world.
Yeah.
And you had to lose all of it for whatever karmic reason that you had to go through that experience, right?
Yeah.
Then that was your lesson, to go through it and lose everything and be reborn like phoenix.
Yeah.
From ashes, literally.
Literally. Yeah.
Look how cute bird you look like a cute phoenix.
I thought about getting one tattooed on my body somewhere, but I just can't come up with the right image to have for the rest of my life, because it keeps
Here
changing.
we get your image, either elephant or a phoenix, or phoenix sitting on the elephant.
Yeah.
We'll come up with the image.
So funny. So true.
Talking about power, back to the power. How do you define your personal power? Oh, before even that, I have so much fun asking women, especially because men, I can't make a man say I'm a woman of power. So can you say I am a woman of power and feel good about it, or not yet?
Yes, I can. I can say that I'm a woman of power, and
Let's say
that
it.
I am a conduit of power.
Can you say I'm a woman of power?
Absolutely. I am a woman. I'm a goddess of power.
Cool. To hear more inspiring stories and practical tips on overcoming your challenges by going within and connecting with your divine power, make sure to subscribe to this channel. So what is the power, internal power? What is it for you?
Oh my gosh, I knew this question was coming up, and I have to share with your listeners that this was the hardest question to wrap my head around. And to me, it's something that should feel so obvious, but I had the hardest time articulating it, because it's something that I feel in my bones. It's something that I know in every cell of my body. But to put words cognitively on defining it, when it changes so much, I had a really hard. I'm going to live the rest of my life meditating on this one question. um,
See, we got you
Um,
all set up for the rest of your life with the tattoo image, the elephant with the
right.
phoenix, whichever you choose, or both. And you have the question to ponder. Look at you, set for life. How cool is that?
Thank you so much, Irina.
Oh,
I
and
just
the
needed
movie
you
to
in my
watch,
life.
and the movie to watch. I always say I'm a teacher, not only by heart, but by profession. So homework for you. You got homework to get a
Homework.
tattoo, to ponder a question, and to watch a movie. How cool is that?
I never knew what I was getting into when I said yes to hanging out with you this morning.
I know, it's scary, right?
I love it. I love it.
It's scary.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think that inner spiritual power comes from knowing without knowing and trusting yourself, trusting that you're a divine being, and trusting that you're also so beautifully supported. And not just in the traditional constructs that we're used to thinking of culturally in the
Mhm.
American culture,
Mhm.
but that there are landscapes,
Mhm.
there are animals, there are crystals and stones and guides, there are angelic beings, there are benevolent beings that we know so little about, that that just want to love us up and to hold us up and to carry us. But we have to ask, we have
We
to
have
ask.
to want it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
We can't sleep. We can't. I say a lot of people I sleep to the other side of the life that is
yeah,
actually the life, not the outside matrix. I call it matrix.
yeah,
Outside world that
yeah.
is a matrix. It's the appearance world, right?
Now, did you see that movie?
Of course.
So I have to tell you that my husband and I have had another child, and
Congratulations. Oh,
yeah,
that's right.
she is my wild, and we've named her Trinity, Acadia, and one of the reasons why we named her Trinity was from the character out of that movie.
I got that. I got that. She's
Yeah,
so pretty and beautiful and has such a role there. And it just, how can you
yeah,
not, right?
yeah,
Very nice. How old is she?
yeah. She's a year and a half,
Oh,
and she is very much her own being, but she's also a part of two others that came through the same womb.
that's right.
So, yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
sure she's playing with them right now, or she's just not telling you.
Oh my gosh. I
Hmm.
mean, that's a whole nother conversation. Yes. And I will never forget the day before she was born. And I had several friends of mine at the house, and one is an acupuncturist, and one is a sound healer. And I was just laying in the bed, and he was drumming and playing the flute. She was needling me, and I went to a different state of being where I was literally running through the woods, playing hide and go seek with all three of my babies.
Oh,
And it was just the most precious moment that I just hold in my heart and will forever. And I know that she came from them. She came because she wanted to be here, and she
absolutely.
chose me, and
Absolutely. She has
they
chosen you and your parent, your husband, right?
and my boys always wanted a baby sister, and we always like, no, we're done. But they got the last word.
Oh,
So
they always do. They
yeah,
always do.
yeah,
Right. Oh, what a beautiful story in itself, right?
yeah,
The new
yeah,
beginning.
yeah.
And interesting how your boys were with you at the time when you were on the other side, whatever that is. We don't qualify it. Well, you were just in that vibration. Your
Mhm.
girl came, your baby girl came when you are very different. You are on a different side, whatever that is,
Yeah.
and it's a different vibration. So you will experience the world with her
And a
in
whole,
that new vibrational, on that new vibrational level.
yeah,
I got chills.
I know. it's just, I'm tearing up. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Mm.
Okay, the baby girl is riding the elephant, having Phoenix on her shoulder. I think that's the better image. That
Oh,
just.
I like that one. I love that. Yeah, maybe with two doves flying in figure eight patterns.
That's right. Look, we
Oh,
just made up the
we
image.
just did.
Collective creation.
Mm.
Well, at least I don't know about tattoo, how you decide, but at least maybe somebody could draw it for you, or you can draw it yourself and have a
Yeah.
something that could be
Yeah.
meaningful.
Oh, I love that one. I really
See,
do.
well,
I'm not going to forget that one. I'm going to be meditating on that
homework. I love homework.
one. I love your homework.
I'm glad you say that. I hope everybody does. My clients do. But when I used to teach at the college, they didn't like it too much.
Right? Oh, goodness.
Okay, well, what we have to wrap up. I would love to talk more, much more, but we
Oh,
have
there's
to
so
wrap
much
up.
here.
And I still
Yeah.
want to ask a question very quickly, maybe. What would you recommend to our audience, to women who maybe go through loss, or maybe whatever the challenge is? What's your teaching point?
To go within, to really to go deep inside of yourself. Don't forget to breathe. Breath work has also been huge. And to try new things, to go beyond what you've known to this moment. And it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to be lonely, and you can still activate when you're scared and when you're lonely. And to reach out to communities, and to not be afraid of surrendering, and to feel that support that comes from the surrender. There is rapture inside of rupture, and but you have to be willing and courageous enough to go there, and every single one of us is, when we give ourselves that permission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, community, diving deep into your spiritual practices, whatever makes sense for the individual, getting into your body, working your shadow spaces, and knowing that you are more than the sum of your parts, knowing that your identity is not in what you see in the external world, but what you know and feel in your internal state.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe talking about permission, maybe
Oh, yeah.
everyone could give herself, our viewers who are women and men too, but women,
Mm-hmm.
give yourself permission to become or to be a woman of power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Right?
transformed. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think this world needs more women of power.
I think the world needs every single woman of power, right?
Man,
Because
yeah.
power is beautiful, power of love. We're not talking about outside matrix power, we talk about power of love.
Yes. Thank you for making that important distinction.
Absolutely. It's different.
Yeah.
It is a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Oof, this is a good moment to, I guess, to complete our fascinating conversation and emotional at that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a free gift for our audience?
Yeah, I sure do. So, in the process of my transformation and becoming a powerful woman, I've also launched a new business called Soul Body Connect. And one of many things that I do in Soul Body Connect is coaching. I'm a grief coach, a grief guide. And so my free gift on my website, it's www.soulbodyconnect.com. is a downloadable that is a simple chart, and it's called What to Say and What Not to Say, or What to Do and What Not to Do when you've been impacted by grief, or when you are holding space for a loved one that has been impacted by grief. So it's just a super simple, helpful chart that gives actionable tasks for people who are grieving and holding space to others who are grieving.
And it's so important to know what to say, because a lot of times words feel meaningless.
Right.
And you don't know how to approach the person, like
Right.
I did even with you when we were talking the other day. Yeah. And I have a master's in linguistics. I am very good with words usually, but
Yeah.
I was at loss, because how do you approach the person and how do you talk about this subject without offending or being rude or being this and being that? And I actually, maybe for the first time in my life, I started thinking, oh my gosh, what do I say? How do I even mention it? So I believe this is extremely important and extremely valuable. And I believe everybody needs this, because we either experience it or we're people who have friends who have experienced it. So nobody's immune from that.
Exactly. Yeah. So so it's a list that's helpful. You can even print it out and put it up on the refrigerator so that people who are coming by the house can know what to say or know what to do when they don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much, Lindsay. Thank you for the gift. Thank you for wonderful story. And you're welcome for the tattoo image. And we all good.
and the movie and the conversation. I love having these conversations, and it's my favorite topic. And I'm just so honored to be here in your space and your platform, and hope to remain connected with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And the feelings are mutual for sure.
Thank you.
I am a woman of power and helping women to connect to and to awaken their inner power. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and goodbye. Remember to get practical tips and awareness shifting activities pertaining to this interview. Go to radiantmastery.com/practice to access your complimentary companion podcast practice.